Citizens Chat Show. It is a very good day to have you on the show. And today, joined with me with the great panelists, the senior citizens of this country, we discussed the Balaalo question, the Balaalo herdsmen in northern Uganda. Just a brief about what has happened is that the president has given an executive order for the Balaalo to leave northern Uganda. But please note that this has always been given before and it has been repeated, and we want to ask, will it be repeated again, or will the president let it go? We also discussed the return of Bobi Wine, aka Kyagulanyi, the ghetto president, and hint about the independence of Uganda and where we want to go as a country. Joined with me today is Lieutenant Major Awich Pollar, Director, External Relations, NRM Secretariat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Was the citation correct? What did you cite the time?
Retired Major.
Yes.
Awich Pollar.
Yeah, thank you. Greeting to our viewers.
And next to him is Mr. Joseph Ochieno, a UPC ideologist and political analyst. Welcome to the show.
Good to have you here, and I hope you'll keep presenting this fantastic show, because I know you in many, many programs out there, and you do a fantastic job representing women. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. And next to Mr. Joseph is Dr. Robert Ojambo, a senior lecturer at Kyambogo University. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, viewers.
Well, and the famous Dr. Sarah Bireete, the ED of CCG and a woman activist. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sarah Bireete.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
Okay, I will start with you, retired Major Awich. Kindly give us a little bit of history of how the Balaalo ended up in northern Uganda.
I thought you were giving the professor. Okay, fine.
Because it's all your fault.
Fine. As I always say, this session we take time to share information or kind of knowledge that we have with our viewers, and I'm sure it excites our viewers when we share with them what we know. And of course, we get their feedback through their comments. So the little that I know, I will share. First of all, Balaalo is a word that was coined. You don't even know whether it is it has a derogatory sense or it doesn't, but we should take it to mean that in common usage, it is used to describe a group of cattle keepers who were nomadic. These were a group of cattle keepers who don't keep in one place. One place like designated farms, fenced, or paddocks or something. Now, in the days in the past, because of the poor agricultural establishment then, where the veterinary doctors and associated farm supervisors were not there, as with cattle keeping, you'd keep here. If you're attacked by disease, you migrate. Or if land was finished, grass was finished, you move. Or if there was lack of water, you go. So they would move. So that kind of nomadic life was prevalent among Banyankole cattle keepers and Banyarwanda cattle keepers. But also Karamojong practiced the same. Karamojong also kept moving. But the Balaalo title or reference got stuck to basically Banyankole cattle keepers, whom some people call Baima, and also Banyarwanda cattle keepers. So the usage of Balaalo can now be taken to mean the two. The nomadic Banyarwanda, Banyankole cattle keepers. So they are the Balaalo. Now, long time ago, Balaalo used to move. Others would move to look after other people's cattle if they don't have theirs. Because historically they developed the expertise and the love for cattle, they would go to look after other people's cattle. My grandfather had Balaalo. Late Brigadier Sefali said he also looked after people's cows in Dogolo, Cecilia Gwal's place. Actually could speak a bit of Langi. But lately, the type of Balaalo movement were those who were moving with their cattle instead of looking after people's cattle like it used to be. Because during a Min's regime, statistics in the Ministry of Agriculture showed that Langis, which originally was the district of Apache and Lira, plus a bit of some Langis in Acholi. Langis spilled in Acholi throughout from Karamoja to National Park here in Karuma. On the other side, there's Langis, always sub-county and the rest. That's where Lanya, the former speaker, was a Langi, but inside Acholi. So you find that belt. So that belt alone had more cows than Ankole during a Min's regime. So that is where the Balaalo used to go to look after cows, but not their cows, but other people's cows because of their expertise and love for cows. And many grew wealthy out of it. And there's one who was called Kagabu. Kagabu came back to Kigumba from Lango, from my place, and he was the wealthiest man in Kigumba with over 10 kraals and kraals of about 400 each. He still has a family. They died though, but he still has a family. Over 10 separate kraals. So he got the wealth from there because whenever they would be employed, they would also buy theirs and keeping and also multiplying there. So by the time Kagabu came back, he was one of the wealthiest people around. Now, the recent one was to the effect that there was shortage of land already this side. So they went to the north. Some got the land by way of renting. They would go to Ochieno and say, Ochieno, I have cows, can I rent from you? Others started getting from friends, I keep my cows. Loaning, not loaning as such, but keeping to Ochieno to keep. Others went and bought. Now, the complaint from the population is that others were illegally acquired, especially in public land areas where there was no clear ownership. The land tenure system in the north is not like in the south. So tenure system in the north is that you can still get a vast area of land which does not belong to Ochieno or Opio. So the fear there is that others went and occupied this public land without permission. But there's also a farm, for example, in Pader, which is a ranching farm for the government. Others went there. So sometimes people were questioning, under what circumstances, where did they get the authority? How did government give them and did not give us the local? So it became a political matter to the extent that one time a brigadier who was a Muralo himself, Kanyesige, was given the power to chase them, and he was using helicopter. I remember a friend of mine in Muralo said, I got so annoyed by Kanyesige chasing us with helicopter, I even left the cows there for him, because it was breeding political issues. So in brief, therefore, the going of the Balaalo are historical in the distant past and in the recent past. And that is how they acquired the land.
Well, thank you so much, retired Major. And I'll ask this question to you. As a person that is part of the NRM, you say securing the future. Is that the best way you have secured the future of the Balaalo herdsmen?
Well, this is actually not a government intervention, because if you ask me whether it is the best way of securing the life for Balaalo, it's like a government intervention. This is not a government intervention. These are an intervention by initiative of members who think that government policy of liberalism or even government way of law and order and the law which provides that you can settle in any part of the country, they are taking advantage of it. So it is not. But the way that government thought they could secure the future of Balaalo is the way Museveni has been doing since his days of Ntare School. He has been advocating for this Balaalo to get settled land, reduce cattle in number, change to quality than quantity, that is the way government thought they would secure the future. But what you're seeing now and what you're referring to is initiative of individuals. The government position is secured land. There was land reallocation, for example, in Ankole. A land committee was set by parliament, headed by Pulkol, David Pulkol, where farms were reallocated to settle cattle keepers. Okay? Lands were recorded. By the way, it is part of why Bianyima families are grieved, because that allocation committee, it was called Land Reorganization Committee something, but it was headed by Pulkol. So this was the intervention by government. So that is the way government intended to secure their future. Making them settle, providing veterinary services, educating them to reduce from quantity to quality. But this one you're saying is their own initiative.
Mr. Joseph, as a person that was part of UPC and is still part of UPC, are you seeing that the NRM has secured the future of herdsmen and the land that belongs to people of northern Uganda?
NRA, of course, is busy securing its own future and the future of their children and children's children in an extremely pathetic, dangerous, and extremely divisive way. I must, first of all, also put a disclaimer on this question by my good brother, Comrade Awich, who does extremely good work for NRA, that somehow in the past, vets were not there, for particularly you young, beautiful people.
Did I say that?
Okay, in terms of availability for them to do the work for farmers. No, Comrade Awich unfortunately got that one fundamentally wrong. In fact, if anything, it is basically the absence of organized government policy why we have this mess. I am old enough to say and to know that I saw Balaalo, and Comrade Awich, your accent is right, in Nagongera. And the Balaalo who were in Nagongera are not the Balaalo who would aggrieve a population today. The Balaalo who were in predominantly many parts of Uganda and parts of Botswana, in fact, indeed across the country, the Balaalo who would aggrieve people today. But at that particular time, particularly in the 60s, government led by Vice President and Minister of Agriculture, John Babiha, did the historically revolutionary thing that this NRA branch have failed to pick leaf from. Agricultural officers across this country at sub-county levels were provided every sub-county across the country to advise free of charge. Veterinary officers were available at every sub-county level, free at a point of service and delivery. Cattle ducts, cattle dips, provide provision of water. Cattle dips across Ankole, Choli, Lango, Maitoro, up to and including in Karamoja, and dips, one partly for water and two for treating cattle to, in terms of making sure that they do not get many of these funny diseases. Even me, Ochieno of Nagongera, attempted to do animal farming in the recent times, and I failed partly because it was very expensive, and partly because you find these corrupted, NRM money-driven vet people who give you quarter water in terms of medicine, and there are no government regulatory framework in place to try and protect people. I came from Tororo just the other day, 2-3 days ago, and one lady, also named after Ochieno, one of the people who were chased out of Luwero, thanks to NRA's programs in Luwero, she talks of how they woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, Sarah, to go and line up for vet to basically buy, drugs in order to try and look after their chicken. So this is basically a shambolic program by NRA, and it's extraordinary that Museveni, who has an understanding allegedly of cattle, having bounced himself and pumped himself into Kisozi, our national farm, and now started boasting with cattle in a farm which we know is basically a public farm, to be the one talking about quality rather than quantity on public farm. He has been an extremely bad example. But that said, Balaalo in northern Uganda, which makes a breaking news stuff, that this is an individual thing, not government. Do we have a government in this country? How do we end up with a bunch of people in their hundreds, in their thousands, traveling from, if you like, the cattle corridor of Ankole, Rwanda part, Kigezi part, Toro in a way, and found themselves in northern Uganda? One, in their big numbers. How? Number two, it has been established most of these guys have guns. Where do they get guns from? It has been known that many of these people can occupy equivalent of villages and control, and they guarded by people who are basically formerly known soldiers. How? And when they do all those, where is government? We do not have a government. We have a regime called NRA. But no, many of these things, it's not surprising why people are saying these are very deliberately coordinated thing, meaning that the Balaalo are literally taking over the Republic of Uganda in terms of our land, our natural resources, and in many cases, a very deliberate way of enabling them and empowering them to make sure that the cattle keeping that they did of those days should be a new cattle keeping thing, but one in which you cover up in the name of grazing, but you're basically controlling and looting and controlling land, whether it's in Lang and Choli, but particularly Choli and Karamoja. It's an extraordinary thing what's happening. But look, it is really the case that this is something that needs to be curbed. What presidential directive has Museveni come up with? And if the guy is a ruler, Museveni is a ruler, a presidential directive which is not followed, as you suggested, Directive 1, Directive 2, Directive 3, and you claim you're in charge? No. Many of these things are shambolic lies which Museveni is putting on the top, but basically pumping his people down. Let's keep going because we're controlling a charge. We're cattle keepers. No, in Nagongara, we agriculture is not cattle keepers. But we've also kept cows. That is true. But the idea that we want to create a situation in which Uganda is nationally becomes a park, for Balaalo cattle keepers, and because we have this free movement of people, it's okay. I don't know if I can go somewhere in the corner of Kirihura, and then I say, oh, there is a free, and there's a lot of free grazing land down there. That's why I question to Comrade Awich is very important. If it is the case that a particular part of the country no longer has free land, they're congested, it's the job of governments are parents. They think, how are we going to enable these people? Government needed to have to come out with a policy and program in which they would engage, not Balaalo, engage on behalf of Balaalo and other cattle keepers across the country that, look, you've got land, part of our population have cattle, can we use this? You lead in the process of negotiations and discussions. Maybe you give these guys incentive, sense of guarantees, and sense of security. That's what needs to be done. But finally, what happened to the Lango cattle? What happened to the Lango cattle? How comes that from the biggest number of cattle to mini zero? What happened to part of the Karamoja cattle? What happened to part of the indeed? And then finally, what happened to the Teso cattle? I saw with my own eyes the Karamojong of the south, and I've said this thing, including this book. The Karamojong of the south pulled cattle across Otoboy down to Soroti South.
Retired Major, what happened to the cattle of Lango? Is a question for you.
When do I answer it?
You
Now?
can take it, yes, please.
Okay. No, the question of Lango cattle has a lot of misrepresentation. Good enough, I come from East Lango. There's East Lango, which borders Karamoja, and then there's West Lango, which borders River Nile. Okay? Like Obote's people are Kohoro, borders River Nile. Actually, Masindi Port, when you are driving on the Kampala-Gulu Highway, it's like 5 kilometers, very near that road. Eh? That is where the boundary of Obote's place with the Masindi district, from Masindi district borders. So it's just very near that road. You can even walk from the Gulu Highway to the water, which you pass only with ferry. There's no bridge. Now, the understanding of what happened to the cattle in Lango is different in the west compared to the east. Because the deliberate rustling of cattle by Karamojong cattle rustlers started over a long period of time and span. So those who saw it during Museveni's time think it is Museveni. But those of us in the east who saw it, for example, it started with Amin.
Dr. Robert, do you agree with that sentence?
Can I finish? In that, the first wrestling started with spears. Karamojong would come with spears, but the communities would fight them and resist. The second wrestling, gunpowder was introduced during Amin's regime and being deployed the army. But the Karamojong were already introduced to gunpowder and they would come with guns. When Amin was overthrown, the entire barracks of Moroto was looted by Karamojong. The raiding increased. Obote deployed an army militia called Diankalaburu. Diankalaburu means my cows will pass over me when I'm dead. It was a big militia group, more than Amura and the Arrow boys. They tried, but Karamojong were more armed. They had better arms. By the time NRA came to Lango, when I was part of NRA, the Soroti Lira Road, the Lira Kitgum Road, were already passed by cattle rustling. They had crossed that road. Because again, when Lotwa was overthrown, the same Moroto district, Moroto barracks, soldiers deserted, Karamojong again looted. So there has been 3 regimes of gunpowder in Karamoja. The initial gunpowder, the looting of Amin's barracks, gunpowder, the looting of Lotwa's gunpowder when NRA took over power, armed them. So now, by the time NRA came, our battalion, 9th Battalion, commanded by Katabaro from Shema, was the first ever to engage Karamojong cattle rustling. We were the first NRA to fight cattle rustling. So now, the cattle in Lango were raided systematically over a period of time. Now, when NRA got involved in fighting Lakwena, and the attention was in the war, Karamojong slipped in. That is why people in the West think it is Museveni. So we asked them, how about us in the East who were looted during Obote? Was it Obote looting?
I am the one who raised that.
Yes.
I am a witness. I am a witness, and I'm prepared to bear witness formally.
You don't come from there.
No. Well, that's simplistic. We are Uganda People's
No
Congress.
way.
We are much more broadly nationalist.
Because if you don't, then you are relying on hearsay,
Allow
which is not admissible.
No, with respect, Comrade Awich, I raise the things I raise. I am taught to defend them, and we don't rail these things lightly. We want a Uganda in which we all unite together, deal with the issues, that whatever they are as challenges, and then we build the future, we give possibilities to these young people. No, I saw with my own eyes. That is what is called Karamojong of the South. NRA looted cattle in Lango and Teso. NRA looted cattle. It's known. That's what I was trying to tell you.
Led by who in the NRA?
Museveni is their chief. So if you want to say that he's led it, yes, it is NRA. He's the chief of NRA. And cattle were looted. I witnessed with my own eyes when I was in Otoboy, when I was coming from Luala. Cattle, Otoboy is just north of Soroti. The Karamojong cannot be in Soroti, leading thousands upon thousands of trucks of cattle. South of Soroti is surely not Karamoja. Guys.
Dr.
And cattle, and the stories of cattle in rail wagons, trains, being rolled to the south, including being brought to Abuja and Kampala. This is an open,
Dr. Robert, do you agree with Mr. Joseph when he says that we don't have a government in regards to the herdsmen in Balaalo herdsmen?
Yeah, before I enter into that deep debate, I want us to first refocus the discussion to the Balaalo question in northern Uganda. I know while doing this, I will be able to answer your question. In everything that happens, there is always push and pull factor. So Balaalo are not in northern Uganda by mistake. And if anybody thinks so, then that person needs to reconsider. Yeah, the background given by my senior colleague, the retired major, is correct. Yeah, that in Western Uganda, we had a small group of people, in fact, the minority of what we would call today Western Uganda, that is Chigezi, Ankole, Toro, and others, who were by occupation pastoralists. A few of them from Rwanda. And those people were moving with their cattle And the land in some of those areas was communally owned. Many of the people in Western Uganda were pushed from Rwanda by some problems that were there, people in Kigezi, people in some parts of Ankole, and others. But in those two groups, there were those who were settled farmers, who are the majority. The bigger area are settled farmers, and a few pastoralists, whom people normally refer to as Balaalo or Bahima. Now, at first, this was very conducive because there was public land that these people would roam in from northern Tanzania, some parts of Rwanda, and Congo, and they would move around that area without any difficulty. Later, there is conflict in Rwanda, so it forces, in 1920, the major one, many Banyarwanda to cross to Uganda, and these mainly come to work, but some come with their cattle. And therefore, the Banyarwanda pastoralists are introduced in Uganda during the colonial time in 1920s. And still land is vast, there is no much quarrel. Then come the UPC government in 1960s and later on 80s, comes up with a policy of settling these Romas, including the Karamojong in northeastern Uganda. And therefore, they created some ranch areas. Said this one should be an area where the pastoralists can roam, but later they become government ranches. But there is a confusion in the UPC. There is a group of people who said these Abanyarwanda should go back to Rwanda, and that became, in my view, the reason why NRA. In fact, NRA is built on that tradition, where there were so many people who are not being understood as Ugandans, and they are telling them to go back home. And therefore, if you look at the history of NRA, majority of the NRA high command that started fighting, majority of them are from that group of people. If you looked at them very carefully,
the nomads.
You will find that they were the ones in Luwero, in Hoima, in many places, who later formed the basis of NRA. Many of these other communities have just joined NRA when it was already formed. And therefore, there were serious agreements, I think, that were made. Because if you are convincing people to join you, there are certain things you promise them, that when we get power, we shall defend you. And one of them was to protect the Balaalo, or this pastoralist community. But to reverse a little bit, I agree with him. There are communities who came from Western Uganda and Rwanda, and they were preoccupied to looking after other people's cattle. And they were spread in the whole part of the country. Maybe with the exception of Karamoja. Karamoja, they did not go there because that one would result into a war.
Oh, they even had their own experts.
Those are also nomads.
They also had their experts.
So Balaalo is a term that was later coined to describe a cattle keeper, somebody who looks after other people's cattle. In Uganda here, that's what it was known. Mulalo wange would mean a person who looks after my cattle, and they would be paid in terms of cattle. Now, let's move very fast and now look at the push-pull effect. Western Uganda, after the NRA took power in 1986, there is a deliberate effort for people to settle. And now people realize that they must change land ownership. So Western Uganda, land which used to be public or government, is now individualized by certain powerful people in government. They either take it by force, and I'm saying this, my dear, I am a student of land and land conflicts. I did my PhD in land conflict in Bukedi and Bugisu. So these are matters I follow very closely. So you have a group of people who start owning public land and turn it into private land. If you go to that area, the areas where there were Balaalo, Wampara, Ntungamo, and others, there were hills, and these were grazing hills. These hills at first did not belong to anybody. If you go there today, these hills are owned by powerful people. Powerful people, I don't want to restrict it to government, but people who are powerful. And in Africa, you can't be powerful without being attached to the state. It's not normally very possible. So the Balaalo in Western Uganda have nowhere to graze their animals. So that becomes a push factor. So they remain with a small corridor, maybe in Isinjiro, those dry parts of Western Uganda, where sometimes the weather there is very bad, and therefore they have to keep looking for areas. Now, why don't they come and settle in maybe Wakiso, in these other places? You find that the land tenure system in Uganda is very strict. There is no land that does not have the owner. They go to parts of Kyambogo. Because of the war, the Ruero Triangle War, there are so many people who died in Kyambogo or left that place because it was infested by war. So that's why you see in Uganda, the Balaalo question is more paramount in Kyambogo, Mubende, and Kyankwanzi. Kyankwanzi, in fact, is the biggest problem. Because in Kyankwanzi, even if you go there and you are campaigning and you campaign in only Uganda, you may not win an election. You have to also speak some Lunyarwanda and some of those languages that are there. Now come LRA. LRA, immediately the NRM took over. In 1987, there is a conflict. The people in northern Uganda do not accept NRA. So they start rebellion after rebellion until it reached LRA. Now LRA, at the climax of it, they start what they call the camps to try and pull people out of the villages and put them in certain places. So they leave bare land, land which would look like it belongs to nobody. But this land belongs to communities. So my friends, the Balaalo, as they were roaming in Nakasongola, because in Nakasongola, if somebody went to Nakasongola, majority of the cattle keeper there are Balaalo. In fact, they go there, they range their cattle, then they sell and go and develop their home. So they crossed into northern Uganda. I will restrict myself there, not to go to Teso and these others. Now, when they reach there, there is a program in northern Uganda of Dog Pacho, Go Back Home, starts. Now, when that program begins, people start claiming, this is our land. This is our land. It belongs to this clan of Pajule, to this clan of Padibe, and so on and so forth. But now there are some NRA bosses or UPDF now who have started getting this land. I will not mention their names on this show, but they started getting this land. So unfortunately, as my senior again said, there is also public land there. So Balaalo first arrive and occupy the public land. That's why public land in Uganda has been contested. Apa, Lango, the Lango ranches, I think, they are no longer there. They are no longer there. Maruji Ranch. They have been taken by...
Maruzi has been very well negotiated by people who eat in State House.
People have taken. So now government becomes entangled into a problem. And you know, in Uganda, the biggest problem we have, there is a close link between the state and government. These things are supposed to work separately. The state is permanent and is supposed to have people who are not who don't take sides. They are not partisan. They should be people who are for the interest of Uganda. Unfortunately, in Uganda, the state and the government are one thing. So you find an Ame man, and he also tells you, I'm in government. And you say, I'm a man, you are supposed to be out of this. So, Balaalo have relatives. Balaalo have people. So, unfortunately, Balaalo find themselves in the state. They are either guarded by soldiers, they have guns, which is supposed to be a preserve of the state. They have money. They can now go and buy vast areas. So you find them in northern Uganda and they start occupying. The pull factor is that northern Uganda is a very fertile crescent. And it has, out of those 24 or 20 years of the war, had grown into a bush. So it becomes an attractive thing. Now, what the state was supposed to do, because our law says land belongs to the people, and we have 4 types of
No,
land
it doesn't
tenures
say so. What did you say? Land belongs to?
to the people of
No.
Uganda.
Land belongs to?
The people of Uganda.
No. Doctor,
Citizens.
land, power belongs to the people.
Land
Power
belongs
belongs
to
to
the
the people.
citizens.
Land belongs to the citizens. That is the diction.
What
the
is
choice
the
of
difference?
the choice of words in the
Semantics.
constitution. No.
Come on.
The choice of meaning that, for example, if you are an
Non-citizens can't buy
Chinese, you are not going to own the land.
Okay,
Non-citizens
The
can-
land belongs
I want
to
to
the
agree.
citizens.
I want to agree. Let me replace
That is why
it.
even a
Let
company
me-
which is not a Ugandan company cannot own the land.
Let me
Congressman thinks it's just
let
semantic.
me
No.
let me replace now people with the citizens.
Yes,
Okay.
but power you can say belongs to the people.
Citizen. But I'm very sure, Major, I can give you a lot of land that is owned by non-Ugandans.
Yes, but still the
So
position
let's
of the
leave-
law.
That is why I tell you, Mr. Museveni and this land thing.
Madam, as I finish, you know these interruptions of citizens and the people.
Yes.
I have
It has
a lot of evidence.
It has legal meaning.
I have a
doctor.
lot of evidence.
It
For
has
those
legal
who are
meaning.
evidence-based, these ones are lawyers. I have a lot of evidence where land belongs to non-Ugandans and they have titles.
And Museveni is
And they have
watching.
titles.
Yes.
So land belongs to the people. I want
Citizens.
to concentrate on that. So where land belongs to the people, therefore everybody should be protected. If he owns land, he should be protected to own that land. And that's why what the president is doing, he's doing what I would call a mouse trick. Mouse. The one people call in English rat. You know, mouse bites you, then it blows so that you don't feel the pain.
Feeling calm.
You don't feel the pain. The president has a responsibility of protecting all the people. Now he's put into a situation where he's between the Balaalo and the people he's supposed to protect. So what he does, he gives statements on the media that look like they are protecting the people of Acholi. But in reality, the Balaalo are the most protected because they have instruments of the state. They have guns. In fact, many people have complained. They are protected by, for example, if the president wanted Balaalo to leave northern Uganda today, he would just summon RDCs and they will chase those people out.
Thank you, Dr. Robert.
But right now, you discover that he's between the hard place and a rock. He has to defend the people, but he also has to defend his fighters.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Robert. And I will come to you, Dr. Sarah. Do you believe the president of Uganda has power?
Well, the constitution gives him power. How he exercises this power is another question. But on the question of Balaalo, it's both a political and social question. And if we miss the political intentions of Balaalo, then we will have missed the point.
And does he have the power to get the Balaalo out of northern Uganda?
I will come to that towards the end. So why do I call Balaalo a political question? When you look at the cattle corridor in the West, it's not that it cannot accommodate its people. So first of all, it is not the absence of land, it is not the absence of pasture and water for cattle that is making people move. The cattle corridor is less populated.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you go by the statistics, I know we are going into census, the cattle corridor in the West is less populated. Meaning that if government was intentional on resettling its people, all they need is to provide water in that cattle corridor. And then this cattle corridor would accommodate the people. Why am I saying it's a political question? The roving Balaalo started from, they went to Bunyoro, they were armed. Started occupying wetlands, the Bunyoro made noise and chased them. And by then, under the command of General Sejusa, who was then known as General Tinyefuza, he was commanded to make sure, directed to make sure the Balaalo leave Bunyoro. Later, the Balaalo moved to Teso and occupied wetlands in Teso with their cattle. They would first start by occupying wetlands and then go on grabbing land slowly for grazing cattle. but armed. So the first question is, who was arming this Balaalo?
Yeah.
Who arms people in this country? It is the state. So why arm people and make them move all over Uganda under the guise of being Balaalo? That cattle they are moving with is just a security ploy. The purpose is to resettle one group of Ugandans all over
All over the country, yes.
and use them for purposes including rigging elections. So when you look at the movements of these so-called cattle keepers, from Teso, when the Teso rebelled against the settlement of Balaalo, some remained. We did a survey we profiled the 2016 voter register. In Teso, the voter register is balancing with Western names. You find more Western names in Teso than any other region in Uganda apart from the West. And you wonder, who are these voters in Teso with the Western names? And how did they come there? Through settlement of the so-called Balaalo. Now they are all over northern Uganda. In Ramo district alone, there is an estimate of 1,500 Balaalo with 35 cattle, and most of them are armed. It is the same story in the whole of northern Uganda. So the question that we should discuss is, why this movement? Because it is the best way to neutralize politically difficult region. It is a smarter way. They will settle there, they will be on the voter register, they will intermarry, they will diffuse the population and diffuse the political dynamics of the region, as well as control the economy of that region. So it is socio-political, economic balance by one tribe covering the whole country. If you look at the dynamics in northern Uganda, communal land, the customary land in northern Uganda, meaning that to buy land, you need a clan to sign for you. I don't know whether that has changed.
No.
So how are these people buying land? They connive with one person, they take over land, they have power of the state. They are not only armed, but they are also protected. And you cannot fight back. So why? If it is a social problem, why are they armed? Why are they protected?
That's right.
By the pillars of the state. Why? The social problem crisis they have caused, this cattle intentionally is grazed on people's crops. So you cause famine.
Yeah.
And because of poverty. And we know that the poverty map in Uganda, you know, the U-boats use the colors of yellow, then towards maroon and red. The poverty map, poverty is increasing in eastern and northern Uganda. These Balaalo have money. So the other question we should ask is, money from where?
From where?
If these are socially misplaced people looking for where to go, why do they have a lot of money with them? So they graze on your crops, famine, then they buy you out cheaply. Because you want to get away from this crisis that you cannot solve. People are armed and also protected by the army and the police. You can't fight back as a civilian. So in the end, you are forced to exit. And as you exit, they are taking over your land. So until we answer these questions of why do they move with a lot of money, first of all, why do they move? Who gives them permits? Because for animals to move from one district to another, they must have animal permits. Who gives them permits to move? Who gives them guns? Why do they carry a lot of money to go and intimidate people and buy them out of their land? And unless we connect that then with the neutralization on the voter register, we will have missed the point. Going back to your question, so does the president have capacity to solve the question? But how can he solve a question that is intended to benefit him? This is a creation of an armed government that is intended to benefit them in terms of political dynamics and political neutralization in northern Uganda.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I will give this question to retired Major General. Major, who is giving the Balaalo guns?
and
Since
permits,
the NRM
and permits to move with their cattle everywhere.
NRM is very clear on securing people's future. NDP3 is telling us peace and security. Who is giving the Balaalo guns?
Okay, but I would want to say this and move on, that the debate on Lango cattle didn't end. I am requesting that with my Congress brother, we have one longer time here to discuss it.
Okay, sir.
And I can assure you, I'm not discussing from hearsay.
Nor am I.
No, you are, because you
No.
don't come from there.
No, that is,
And
with respect, that is simplistic.
You create a fictitious
sorry,
situation.
if you don't mind, just if you mind.
I mind, because you're going to take all the time.
No, I can give
Even
you my,
if you
I can
say
give
1
my next
minute,
1
you
minute.
will say
No, I
10
can give you
minutes.
my next 1 minute. No, I think for these programs, if we confine our debates on the authority on the basis of where we come from, then would undermine his academia. No, I think let's do these things on a matter of evidence. I told you that I witnessed with my own eyes what happened in Otuboy. And at my level, politically, I cannot say that, no, I cannot discuss the Ankolic question simply because I don't come from the West. I happen to know some of these issues as well, if not in many cases, better than many of those people. But
So can you be brief?
No, please do, carry on. Yeah.
You see, to that extent, that's why I was worried and guarded that sometimes when you debate, you create a fictitious situation. For example, creating a fictitious situation that I was in a Tuboy. I saw it myself, when you have actually never been there. And because now we can't prove whether or not you were in a Tuboy, at that time, you wanted listeners to believe you were in a Tuboy. But
just
what
like
I'm saying
Museveni, who
is,
claims the elections rigged, and it takes
but
40 years,
I can
and you
say
can't provide evidence, and you're a
that
lawyer.
the cows that we recovered in a place called Kalan, I repeat, the first NRA to engage Karamojong. Kalan is a place where Professor Gwengalatigu comes from. It's a big Catholic establishment, hospitals, schools, and all that. These cows were raided from Gulu because we had to wait like 2 weeks for the owners to come and reclaim.
Raided by who?
By Karamojong. Because these were the first NRA there. Karamojong actually thought there was statelessness. Remember, I don't see why you remember, when did NRM come to power?
86.
Date?
26 January.
26. Now,
25th.
25th now.
Yes.
NRA advancing to the place I'm telling you took like 4 months. Why? Because the advance was on foot. So you are talking of 4 months of no government in the north. This is the point I'm saying. 4 months, because from the takeover of power, the entire north now had no government. Because NRA was moving foot by foot. In fact, we had, in Maram roads, we had a machine of mine sweeping. You had to smell the mine, list any army lorry which would come and land, step on the mine. So advancing to the north took months. Now, in this month, Karamojong had reached Gulu. That's why I'm saying our first engagement, they actually thought there was no government. To their surprise, they found NRA. Because the gap of takeover of Kampala and NR reaching there was like 4 months. So there was no government then. Now, meaning that this coverage already, you can imagine by the time NRA reached, Karamojong had reached Gulu. Okay? And by the way, for your information, understand this. The Karamojong cattle rustling we are talking about, they move like a brigade of soldiers. If Karamoja was in Kampala here, they would move in a single line up to, say, Lukaya, in single file like the army. Now from Lukaya, they would extend and come eastwards, taking every cow they get on. That is how they move. That is why if they meet the army, it's a real fight, because it's a brigade of armed people. It's not theft that they come and steal and run away. No, an entire brigade walking from here past Wakiso up to Lukaya and extending in extended file line now with guns coming all the way. Now, that is when we met in Gulu. So the whole thing was in Acholi and in Lango.
But Major, let me ask you a simple question. I really tend to accept what you are saying.
You accept
And
it
it's
fully.
very true. When NRA took power, if you go and see the animal census that was done immediately once people settled, Teso had the biggest number of cattle in Uganda.
Yeah.
You just earlier told us that before that, Lango, Eastern Lango, had the biggest number of cattle in Uganda. And looking at your analogies, that all this cattle in Lango was taken by Karamojongs, cattle in Acholi was taken by Karamojongs, cattle in Teso was taken by Karamojong.
So
how come Karamoja does not have the highest number of cattle?
That question is very simple. Turkana was also raiding them. Turkana was also raiding them. For record purposes, let me tell you, there was even a joint program. There was even a joint program between government of Uganda and Kenya to disarm the Turkana who were invading Uganda. It was, yes, the Pokot. Now you're answering. Now you're answering. So it was a counter raid.
Recently, I was in Denmark and we were engaging this. And we found that the number of cattle among the Pokot is also very small.
Yes, they.
So you have moved the question. But anyway, it is on record that government of Uganda had a joint operation system to stop the raid from Kenya inside Uganda to the Karamoja.
Yes,
that one is on record.
Only three.
Yes.
So
maybe,
yes, so it was there.
Not
Now
to go into this raid thing because it is derailing our debate.
Because
we
the
want
truth
to
is
agree
coming
with you.
out.
We want to agree with you.
Thank you so much.
That Karamojongs are the ones who raided this.
Where are the guns coming from?
Can I finish this to settle this matter? That one, maybe you need to call us another time and we come with the statistics.
The animal population.
Animal population and the raid evidence. Because there is a very big problem. Even in Kenya, they are asking about the same question. And the answer has been that these raids must be at a higher level.
Organized.
And where our cattle may find itself in other countries, in Saudi Arabia, in other places, and so many other places. But with the knowledge of the powers that be, you cannot export animals without government knowledge. They will not allow you fair.
By government,
so we go back to
that now about as conspiracy theory. It will continue because even if we finally find out that it is not in Saudi Arabia, somebody will say it went to heaven.
Okay, that's
the issue is where they.
Where are the guns coming from? The
I told you the gunpowder question came in three phases. One, Karamojong had started using gunpowder. By the way, if you look at
right
for
now.
the Balaalo.
Why are the Balaalo armed?
Okay, I had actually put here.
Where are they coming from?
I had actually put here about the armament.
Yes.
I had put here about the armament. Now, you see, the armament question is an evidential factor. First of all, you need to be ascertained that indeed a group of so and so Balaalo in this village were found with guns. Otherwise, we may shout it without evidence. Two, if they were found with guns, which I have no evidence, because it is here, it is easy for us to make claim here. And when you check that where were these ones found with guns, somebody tells you, I heard in the other village.
General.
I heard the other village. I heard the other village.
Major,
yes.
Do you believe what you see on TV? Do you believe what you see on TV?
Yes, I've not seen this one.
I have seen a situation where they are recording a live, a news thing, and they give a caption of Balaalo carrying guns.
I've not seen it. Anyhow, now the question where they get guns, if you have seen it, I've not seen it then. By the way, let me tell you this. The question of land knows no race, knows no politics. I come from the north, and there's nowhere where I would give a deceptive explanation. Let me tell you this. In CA, there was a divide between NRM and other parties on all issues. But on land, even Cecilia Ogwala and Sam Kutesa would go and sit somewhere. Meaning that land is a material interest which has no political connotation. And that is why land issue was handled in the sea in a way that it was never resolved, because the material interest cuts across everybody. So it would not make any sense for me, a director in the movement, to explain a land matter wrongly. Never, it doesn't. Even my consciousness cannot, because it's a materiality. Okay? That is why the CA question never resolve land, because even when you tell the movement people to do this, pass this resolution, when the person has land, at coffee will go and take with the opposition who is a landowner, and they will be. So it needs, not only does it need, but it's automatic honesty. So therefore, what I'm telling you is what I know. It is automatic honesty, because it affects the materiality interest. And that's what happened in CA. And that's why the land thing was never resolved effectively. They pushed it to Parliament, that Parliament shall enact laws. And when it went to Parliament, it also meandered around and about and within and among and generally and not particularly. So the armaments, if it is, people are shrewd. Other people can have illegal guns. There's a lot of illegal guns in circulation. At one time, government wanted to register guns for effective monitoring.
And failed.
Others can have fraudulent relatives in the army, but that is not the government position. Government, some people can have. So your guess on how they get guns is as good as my guess. Through illegality, through all illegality, actually. I do not see, because the law allows us to have guns, licensed guns, and with particular type prescribed by law. I do not see them with this permission of gun ownership as by law. So therefore, the ownership of any gun, if any, is through illegality. Either illegal guns sold and bought, or through indisciplined army officer relatives, or otherwise. So that is the answer to guns that they could have. But that is not to say government has deliberately armed you. That would be speculation.
Could you just help me? Is there any circumstance under which, under this NRA regime, it would be suggested that there are 3, 4, 5 people known to be with guns in somewhere in Kamwacha village, adjacent to Kampala city of Kololo, and it would be dismissed as the guess is as good as mine? In a lawful country with the president? Comrade, that sort of is what you're trying to suggest. This is actually something which is so serious. I totally agree with you. It cannot and shouldn't be a partisan thing. I've always said we need to be able to deal with these things. And actually with the submissions by Sarah and indeed my brother here, no, these are serious matters that we need to have consensus around which we need to be able to resolve long term. It should not really be a politicized matter, meaning politics for short. For us in UPC, we want long-term solution. It's a mess. Comrade Awich, we cannot say we know people armed, and acquiring land and animals using arms, and Mr. Museveni is watching the other end of it.
You see, part of the question would be, or part of the answer should have been, what are the government attempts on this question? Mm-hmm. I already hinted at the beginning that at one time Brigadier Kanyesigi chased Balaalo using helicopter. Okay? There was a command. My colleagues say either it is the rat biting and cooling, or he says it is a way of cooling things, but steps were taken. And up to now, government is seriously working on that. So we could only
For how
be
long? For 40 years?
I think the intervention now, this is 2023, the intervention now, or this current intervention that is being taken, started 2022.
Moderator, you know these people are bombarding the retired major with the questions. And I can see him in a lot of difficulty.
I don't have difficulty. I don't have
because his explanation really worries me so much. You know,
particularly which
my
one?
sister here, my elder sister here, asked very specific questions, and there were 3. That Balaalo have guns, they have money, and the
They
third,
move with cattle.
the,
Who
the, the
gives
move
them?
one is the permit. The permit. And these are very clear things which we should just answer very quickly. Unfortunately, we are not getting the answers. But for
But
me,
I
the
didn't know it was
answer,
directed to
the
me.
answer comes, in my view, the answer is what I've been saying for a very long time. You know, NRA came, they have power and they have everything, but they have failed to establish two things: a state and a government. That one, they will retire when they have failed. And nobody bothers about them. They're a problem of other people.
Yeah.
And we say those are illegal people. They are just illegal. It creates a very big problem. Number two, the permit. I remember when this man was a minister, there was a very big quarrel between the late General Tumwine and the Minister of Animal Husbandry right now on the permit of animals because of an outbreak of a disease in the areas of Sembabule and Masaka. And it was affecting one who has animals and cannot move them, and the other one had powers to sell. So he had become almost a monopolist. And these are two generals, because Bright is a general and Tumwine is a general. And you really see some unruly children. If President Museveni is supposed to be the father, they are too unruly, and he's just watching them until they settle themselves and one defeats the other, and he keeps quiet. So I think, to answer your question, some of these Balaalo are very powerful people.
Yes.
Or they are supported by powerful people. And since we have a partisan state, a partisan state, a state which is there to defend the government,
The regime.
not the country. They are untouchables. They are people you don't touch. For example, he has asked a pertinent question. Let me be suspected with a gun today. I will spend my night at CMI.
Only one.
CNI or somewhere where many people may not know. Suspected. But although the general does not, the major does not believe in me, but for me, I've seen a picture where Balaalo are carrying guns and they are with their cattle and they are profiling them on news, and somebody has never come to say that picture is wrong.
They are armed.
They are armed. If they can be allowed to live with that illegality, then they are special people. Then the money, this one is wondering about the money. You see, I have always been arguing, and I do calculations. They say people who have cattle are very rich. So if somebody has 400 heads of cattle, and he sells each at 2 million, because the cattle they have is at that range of money. So how much money does he have? Can he do what we think they done? And the other thing, would he sell everything to have this money? No, he has not sold. Maybe sells 2 or 3. And Emulalo, to sell 4, 5, 6 of his cattle is quite very difficult. So it means even the money they have, either people who are sponsoring them, we need to interrogate this and find out who is sponsoring this Balaalo. But it's simple. In northern Uganda, if you went today to the land records, retired Major Awich, and you went to the land records, you will find that people have registered land there. You know, northern Uganda is supposed to have communal land ownership. But the law now allows, with the amendment in 2007, amended that now communal land can be registered. You can now go and you get a customary certificate. People now, if you checked in Lamu, in those areas, people have registered land there, which used to be communally owned, is now personal land, and his guess is very good and true. And I think, Major, this one you will not argue, dispute that there are a number of people from Balaalo community who have now registered land there. Yet majority of the Acholi don't have that right. I'll give you another example. They were recruiting
of the role of the religious, the cultural leaders.
No, you see, these people have been in camps. Some of them died. The system almost collapsed.
Yeah.
The system of that cultural thing collapsed. The only powerful person up there is now what? And a few people around him. The clan leaders, nobody knows. If, you, for example, you were a serious general in the army, you almost become a defunct clan leader. You know, one who stays in Mutungo here is a very powerful man in northern Uganda. There was a police recruitment, and this one was at the floor of parliament, therefore has evidence. There was a police recruitment in Mayuge, and they had registered these police people who have been registered, and MP came running to the speaker. He said, we cannot allow this. You know, they give quotas to districts and other places. And 90% of the people who had been recruited in Mayuge had names from Bushenyi and Reverend.
Yeah.
It caused laughter in parliament. And they told somebody to explain. He could not explain. He could not explain. In fact, that business was abandoned. So there is a problem. There is a problem. And for us, we want to tell the people who are controlling the state, the NRM, that there is a problem. We need a solution. Don't come here to defend. We need a solution. There is no way. We are going to get a genocide in this country. And we don't want genocide at this time. Because President Museveni today is a very good man, powerful, but he's not going to be here forever. But the problems that he has created may affect people. For example, just look at landless Acholi. Landless Acholi people. And the owners of land in Acholi are people from a different area. I don't know which army you will need to protect such a thing.
As a woman, the issue of Balaalo in northern Uganda affects women.
The issue of land mainly affects women, especially those, especially those that derive their livelihood from land. Land is a matter of life and death. We still have 80% of Ugandans still directly dependent on land and agriculture. So when you go to a region, that's why I said that we shouldn't lose the political lens of disempowerment or conquering a region. Because if I take away land today, even if I give you money, what's the value of money? And which land can you buy to replace? Because customary land is cheap, communal land is cheap. Which land, where can you resettle in Uganda today? Hardly nowhere. So yes, women pay the highest price because they are the ones majorly working on land, except for a few, rich farmers, where the men now come into the farming. So when you have this situation going on in the country, unabated, you have Balaalo. For me, I think unless the actually people tackle the question of Balaalo as a political question, they will never solve it. Meaning that they need a political pushback to the issue of Balaalo. But unfortunately, now Northern Uganda is the new bride of NRM, so they are blind to many of the things that we are discussing here. They think they have arrived and it's their turn to eat. So they won't even interrogate further the questions because they have a few of their leaders being compromised with 1, 2, 3 jobs. And they think they are in things because a few convoys drive to the region. So unless we tackle the question to know that land is the biggest factor of production in Uganda, first of all. So once it is taken away, that community is disempowered. The second aspect is food. What is the target in the complaints? Documented before Parliament. The animals are grazed on people's gardens. You create famine. So apart from your land being encroached on, you have no food to feed your family. Then you are forced out of desperation to sell and go and settle somewhere else. Unfortunately, there are few places where you can settle these days. This Balaalo started from Bunyoro after discovery of commercial quantities of oil. So it is not just a mistake of roving armed Balaalo. When they went to Bunyoro, their first tactic is to settle in wetlands because people are not paying attention in wetlands. Settle in wetlands for 1 week, then they start encroaching on normal land. no more land, forests are gone. Because the issue of Balaalo in that executive order number 3 is coupled with deforestation and charcoal burning. You know, then they are in forests. Then before you discover them, you say they are armed people. Because the news in Bunyoro was that they are armed people in wetlands, in forests. Are they rebels? No, they are Balaalo. We know them. Then General Sejusa, then who was the director of special operations, was deployed to deal with the issue of Balaalo in Bunyoro. They left and moved.
By the way, they have gone back.
They've gone back to Bunyoro. Yeah. Yes. Because the purpose then was to make sure Balaalo have a presence in Bunyoro. So when you come to compensate land, you are dealing with your own. You are not just faced with any other people you don't know. So you control the dynamics
And
of Balaalo
the mathematics can be
yes,
very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then they went to Teso. Then Teso people, of course, given that their cattle was taken away, for them they were too aggressive, saying, you stole our cattle, now you are bringing yours. So the politics could not work. But when you go to the voter register today, and I challenge people to check
That's
the voter
yeah.
profile of Teso, you will find Banyankore names. Shockingly, in a large number. In a large number. By then it was 30% in 2016. So now you got to know, tell me the voter register for Northern Uganda, what will it be? So as the regime that's, tries to, get the Maos and the rest on their region, they are also getting the numbers on the register. When the Balaalo are there, some of your prominent people will marry their girls who are very beautiful. So they are taking on, they are encroaching on the numbers apart from encroaching on the economy. They are taking the numbers. You will intermarry, you will produce Balaalo children, and you're gone. And then you find Balaalo are dominant, not only in the West, but they will have a presence. A large presence in Bunyoro, they will have a large presence in Teso, they will have a large presence in Northern Uganda. And that will be their already political capital before any campaign starts. And for me, I think that is the major target.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I will come back to you, to retired major, and ask you, does the NRM really love women? From the submission of Dr. Sarah Bireete, does the NRM really love women with what we are seeing in Northern Uganda?
So much. The love for NRM and women is so much, and the list is so long. For example, a clear emphasis has been on girl-child education. Earlier before, girls were not taken seriously in education, maids or even married material. So, or marriageable materials. NRM embarked on that, and there's clear rise in education for girl child. 2, the affirmative action of 1.5 points for entrance of university was a long-held cherished position to educate women at a university education level. 3, there's a constitutional provision which says that every body that is organized, a third must be preserved of women. 4, political appointments. You have seen it. Prime Minister, Vice President is there.
Yeah.
5, leadership. We deliberately made sure that every district, there's a woman MP. There's no male MP. There's a woman MP. And yet women also contest in other elections, a constituency. 6, you have many legislations, including affirmative actions legislations. Okay. Equal Opportunity Commission. A bigger task of Equal Opportunity Commission is inclusiveness of women into the mainstreaming. Now, that is why even land matters and the law on land and legislation, a clear position taken with a mind that the woman, the tiller of the land, the woman tiller of the land is at the center of planning.
Leave alone,
interventions like poverty eradication program, including PDM. There's a designed way for women to benefit. Now, so to answer your question, whether NRM love women. I said so much, and I think I have illustrated it. Now, the Balaalo question is a question that may not affect women per se, but is a political question that must be dealt with, and government have done it. I have told you that a whole brigade with helicopter was sent to handle this, to chase them. But they're human
they're
beings
not
and they
getting
are
out.
privileged persons. So, like any other challenges in society, it will be dealt with like any other.
Madam
So,
Moderator.
Madam, have I answered whether NRM loves
Madam
women?
Moderator,
Yes, sir.
it's just like asking a Catholic, but do you love the
The
Pope?
Pope.
He can talk about the Pope the whole day.
But I
The
answered
issue
the
we
question.
are handling here, and the statistics show, all the studies we carry out, is that whenever there is a land conflict, land grabbing, land exploration, and all these words, use them the way you want, the women are the most affected.
Yeah.
Because majority of our women in Uganda, with all those affirmative action, are still dependent on the land, and they are the feeders of the family. They are the ones who feed most of the family here. The food we eat in Kampala here, 80% of it is produced by women. So when you distort any land tenure system or relationship, you have affected them dangerously. What we want as answers with all these affirmative action, we want to know what is the mitigation factors that government is putting in place to defend these vulnerable women and children from this scam, I call it scam, of Balaalo. I've carried out a study in Busoga because of growing sugarcane. The women have been disposed of their land because people go and agree over a drinking place and the land is rented to a sugarcane grower. The woman who has been using the land does not know, only to see a tractor coming to dig and so on. So I'm seeing northern Uganda. Northern Uganda, you have seen now factories are going there, sugarcane factories, you know this famous one, which gets a lot of money in every budget, but they have failed to put in even one chimney or there to produce sugar. So many others are coming. When you go, these bureaucrats in Kampala now have bought land in, not in acres, in square miles in that place. Who is being disposed? The women. So what is there to be given? When these people are fighting, because sometimes there are these village fights we don't see even on TV. People fighting, group fighting, Balaalo and this and this and this. I know security has profiled them, but they are not interested. Who are affected most? The women. So in my view, I don't think we need to come here and explain what government has done to empower women. That is in public knowledge. Whether it has worked or not, that's another matter. But on this issue of land and Balaalo, what can be done? For me, I think the state needs just to be in charge. When the state reads a directive by the president, what have they done? What has Uganda police done? What has because these days UPDF and Uganda police, they're almost the same. What have they done? Can they go and remove these people that have been chasing away ADF rebels from northern Uganda and say, excuse me, Balaalo, you are not supposed to be here. Please go back. Why should we just be seeing pronouncements over time and yet the effects are there? Lastly, when you look at the land tenure system, and it is at this time that the debate of ownership of land is coming. The other day I was shocked by my very old good friend Penimogi Nyeko when he wrote in papers, and that's his opinion is entitled to it, that all the land in Uganda need to be taken up by government. And that is his advice as chairman, acting chairman. I think he wants the acting to be removed so that it becomes a land commission. But I don't know whether Penimogi has a lot of, and this is the problem in Uganda. You pick a professor who has been a vice chancellor of a university for the last 15 years and he becomes the chairperson of land commission. So he starts speaking things which don't add up. Because in this era, how can you be proposing in Uganda that government needs to take up the ownership of land when we are very aware that the government of Uganda is the poorest trustee
Manager.
that you can give land, because that is exemplified by the public land in Uganda. Public land in Uganda has all been lost. And where is the mortgage place where they mortgage this land? The brokers are in State House. Every day they are drafting a letter, the president giving out land someplace, somewhere. And when sometimes he's asked, he is not even aware. Institutional land has been taken. Public land in all parts of Uganda has been taken, including ranches. So there is no way you can give government to be the trustee of people's land in Uganda, especially this government. It will be absurd. Some of us will really feel very bad who spend a lot of time controlling this land. The land laws are very good, but the courts are corrupt. The people who are supposed to protect, because in every district there is a person in charge of these things. What has happened to those people in Lamo? They are seeing this Balaalo. They are seeing what they are doing. It breaks the law. We have never heard that this group of Balaalo have been arrested and they are being laid in court the way they take these Nupu guys who disturb our peace here. They are captured and taken to Masaka and laid to court. We want to see some of these guys who are breaking the law, according to what he said, that these people may be owning guns illegally, to be arraigned in court and they are punished, so that it deters the others from going. But if it happened in Teso, the Bateso, the people from Teso, I'm calling them like the Bantu normally call them, the people from Teso literally chased them.
Yeah.
They said if it is going to be a war, let it be.
Yeah.
And they literally chased them. You know, they have elements of Amuka still there. The people in Acholi, they are still confused. But they will literally chase them.
They had been beaten through genocide, deliberate genocide, according to Pollar.
Reach a time and they will chase them. But the trouble is, if they fail to chase them, my feeling is that many people from that area, since they own this land communally, some people will give this land to individuals and the communities will remain landless, and it will lead to a serious problem in the future. I'm not a prophet of doom.
Okay, let's go for a short
let's breathe
commercial
fast break.
and we'll be back.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Welcome back from that short break. And our dear panelists, what could be, each one of you, your recommendation to this issue that we have around the Balaalo in northern Uganda? We'll start with Dr. Sarah.
Well, some of the recommendations, for me, first of all, I'm uncomfortable with the president issuing executive orders. I believe they are unconstitutional. The president quotes Article 99, and he has issued about 5 orders so far, executive orders. The president quotes Article 99 as the authority that gives him power to enact laws. I think he has a hangover of the Idi Amin decrees. Because in the 1995 Constitution, there is nowhere where a president can turn himself into a legislator. Article 99, Clause 5 provides that the president can issue an instrument through a minister using an act of parliament. If you read Executive Order 1, 2, 3, and he issued another one on Entebbe Botanical Gardens when he was giving them away, I think that's the 4th, there is nowhere where he quotes an act of parliament. So the executive orders are not anchored in any law. So when you look at the executive order where he says now for a Balaalo to move, executive order number 3, for a Balaalo to move to northern Uganda, they need permission of the Minister of Lands or Agriculture. Under what law? How can a Minister of Lands now be giving movement permits? How? How? Agriculture would issue permits through the mechanism for animal movement of animals. Ugandans don't need movement permits to move from one part of Uganda to another. People moving with cattle need movement permits that are issued at the village level. to show the number of cattle you are moving with and the purpose. So the mere fact that we have this Balaalo with no documentation, it shows that it is government conspiracy to defraud and confuse the people of northern Uganda. So my first way forward is, one, the people of northern Uganda need to look at the Balaalo question as a political manipulation to take away their land and political legitimacy by manipulating the voter register, and they need to push back based on that basis. Take away your land, take away your political rights. The second issue, to issue an executive order, then after you constitute a committee by Salim Saleh and General Salim Saleh and some ministers, is really to make a fool of people. If a president has issued an executive order, it should be final. You should have done your background. So you issue an executive order, it's like acting and then thinking later. Then you put a committee to investigate. Investigate what? The order. So why did you then issue an order? Now the extension that the president is studying a report of the... This is to make a fool of people. Either the people who are reading this country are too disorganized, or they are making a fool of people. And Parliament needs to assert its power in this matter.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Dr. Robert, your recommendation?
Yeah, it is difficult to give recommendations on these things, but because they are not yet even clear, as you have seen on this panel, we are not very sure on who controls this Balaalo movement to wherever they have reached. So the first thing we need to find out, she has given her point of view, thinks she's political. So that I think that political plan is suicidal. It can be suicidal because it is going to lead to a lot of problems. I think we don't learn from history. We have failed to learn from history. There is no way you can cajole people forever. You can fool people for some time and fool some of them, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. So it can bring a problem. If Balaalo were legally living as individuals, they gunned by their land through the market forces without any of these problems, there would be no problem, because somebody is allowed to buy land anywhere so long as you follow the right procedure. Number two, for me, I think the land question in Uganda still needs to be handled carefully. And you need some bit of expertise. Unfortunately, in this country, things are done by non-experts. And at the end of the day, they come up with the funny resolutions, because even some of these executive orders are given by people who have their own interest, and the president sometimes looks at it. Because you see, in Uganda, so long as something does not affect the power of the president, it is not taken with the seriousness that it deserves. I was joking with somebody that if you want any serious issue, you threaten the presidency.
Yeah.
You will be handled with all the general was telling me that it's for the sake of our security. So we need to study the government very carefully and how they have been doing their things. Does this Balaalo thing threaten presidency? If you follow her analogy and believe in it, it facilitates. So it can only be promoted. But I think that is dangerous. We need to think about the state of Uganda. The reason why American right now has what people would call a weak president, but is moving, because you can't compare Biden with the other presidents of the United States of America. They were felt, they would be giving statements everywhere. Biden these days, you have to remind people that he's still the president of the United States. Many of my students sometimes don't know who is the president of the United States. But why has America survived? America survived because of a state.
Yeah.
The state is strong. I've always given this example that when Trump, my very good friend, was asked whether he will leave power, he said he's going nowhere. And they asked a state controller that the way Trump is talking, will he really leave power? And the state controller said, wait for that day. Trump will leave. And he really left. That's the state I'm trying to talk about. Yeah. A state that does not care whether it is President Museveni, whether it is Balaalo, whether it is Ojambo, it must do the right thing. We don't have that state in Uganda yet. The state here is very, very partisan, very partisan. If it likes FDC, it leaves FDC to do funny things. If it likes NRM, NRM does all sorts of things and they can break the law. They can even fight amongst themselves and no policemen will. In fact, the police will supervise their fighting. One time I saw, I think NRM, had one word. And NRM people were carrying out a demonstration in Kampala. They were killing people, they were walking, singing. They were being escorted by police. I think that is not right. The last thing which we need to do is, today it is northern Uganda. And that is the problem with Uganda. The problem with Uganda, when fires were being, funeral fires were in Uganda, the people from other places said, that is Uganda problem in 1966. The funeral fires went to West Nile, to Acholi and Lango in 1971. The other people in Uganda said, those people from northern Uganda have a problem. The funeral fires went to West Nile in 79. People said, but those people also, those Muslims have really caused a lot of problems here. The funeral fires went to Luero, and it was almost a genocide. There is going to reach a time when there will be funeral fires everywhere in Uganda. So we need to get concerned. People need to get concerned. Today, Balaalo are in Acholi, they were in Teso, they were in Hoima. They will come to many places because they are becoming stronger. They are becoming stronger. They are consolidating themselves with wealth, with the power, and with the law. Because some children of the Balaalo are now studying law. And they will be very easy to defend these people wherever they take them to court. The money they have, the guns they have. So when they can become a very big problem to a country. So we need to come up with a land policy which is clear. Our land policy of 2013 has still not been tested well. Because unfortunately for Uganda, we got a Land Act in 1998 and later a land policy. And the land policy still has issues. It has created a lot of problems. Now, right now, there is even a problem of government acquiring land for development. I really sympathize with the government because some of these things have been affected by dealers. How sure are we if these Balaalo are not a government thing to take up land in some places? Because if they have guns and money, where are they getting money? So they need to be handled by the state handlers. But I doubt the state in Uganda will not do that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mr. Joseph. Your recommendation?
What recommendation can I give? I have no recommendation except to say that I completely associate with my two colleagues and indeed my comrade at arms here when he's trying to defend the defensible. I must simply say that going forward, really unfortunately, there is not going to be any major change. And as far as some of these issues are concerned, it's important that we have an academic giving a warning to this country in terms of what can happen. I hope that Comrade Awich's bosses watch and take note. It's very clearly the case that not much is going to change unless this regime changes. The Balaalo are part of an established, the Balaalo in this format, as nuanced and as suggested, the part of an established thing that Mr. Museveni coined from post-Ntare, but definitely 78, 79, pulled many of these people from refugee camps and turned them into war machines against the state and the Republic of Uganda, perfected the art, which is some of the suggestion that it was the then government that pushed many of these people away. So it's a detailed thing. We all know the facts. It's neither here nor there. The truth is that we know the genuine truth. The Musevenis have got their narrative. I'm not quite sure whether that's necessarily helpful. One thing, though, is clear, that how is it the case that the Balaalo can be guided into northern Uganda and the Karamojong continue to be a coin in a particular corner? Why is it the case that we don't also create a corridor for the Karamojong to go and graze in a particular part of cattle corridor in Ankole? Why don't you create a space for the Karamojong to go ahead and graze in a particular corner of the other end of Atiak and say it's okay because Because
let everybody
let everybody move and to be able to do so. If anything, the export of Karamojong we get are girl children in the street of Kampala. And what can we talk about? Janet was even a woman, went and took charge of Karamoja, whether she came back with or without gold or anything else, neither here nor there. But the truth is that Karamojong girls are walking the streets of Kampala. The other day in the morning, I was going on a television program at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're seeing a 3-year-old girl child carrying another 1.5-year-old girl child in the streets of Kampala. It's absolute criminal. And the idea that NRA came and liberated the women, whatever, that is not the topic. We need to be able to come back to that. You cannot talk about this when the core of our people are that. But anyway, recommendations, I have none, except the people of Uganda need to wake up. The people of northern Uganda need to wake up and claim back their space. I know Mr. Museveni went and did what Lara said, torch them in genocide, and now they're too weak sometimes to speak for themselves. But no, we don't want these things to reverberate like that in Nigeria or any part of this country. We want a Uganda in which all of us are back together, particularly back to the 60s when UPC did it so well, when the Balaalo were in Nagongara, and we had no issues with Balaalo because there was law and order, and the citizens of this country was such that power belonged to them. Today, under Mr. Museveni, no, until the man retires, which of course is in 20 years' time. You need to wait for another 25 years, though.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Retired Major.
No.
What is the NRM going to do to ensure that the Balaalo leave northern Uganda?
I thought I was answering a generic question.
You are sharing your way forward.
Recommendation. Yes, but before I give my way forward, I need to make short comments on what Doctor said. Doctor talked about Mogi's views on land being reverted to the state. We all know that the main decree put land in the hands of the state up to when the decree was repealed.
It did not even work.
Up to when the decree, because I think we also further know that laws are not hard and frozen. Laws are dynamic. So there's a school of thought, I don't subscribe though, that the ownership of private land is becoming very troublesome for society. For example, it is well known that the construction of Entebbe Highway Road was more expensive because some individuals fraudulently acquired land and literally make a government project
Thieves.
very expensive and nearly frustrated.
Those are government thieves.
Yes,
So,
and they're known.
those are government
And they're known.
things. So when the government want to do away with it, it thinks that way. So there are pros and cons, and laws are not strict, but that is what the school of thinking. But in the 95 Constitution, it came at a time when the world was a global village. IMF and World Bank had come in strongly. First of all, for the state to pull away its hands from properties. And that is why they sold all factories, sold all industries, sold
things.
all this. Now, IMF World Bank itself went ahead to persuade many governments that make land belong to the citizens. Why? Because when land belongs to the citizen, the overall arching policy of World Bank of economic, it filters down to the ground. It would be difficult for World Bank to do that. So it's a global dynamics. That is how it went down there. But all said is that there are pros and cons, and laws are not hard and frozen. I am okay with land belonging to the people. I mean, not to the people, to the citizens. But watch out that some of these challenges make some people say, oh, maybe Amin in his way was right. Some people think, and Mogi is one of them. So that is my first comment. The second comment I want to make is that you seem to think I should answer the way you want. You see, when she asked me whether NRM loves women or not, it was upon me to answer, not to answer the way you want. And by the way, maybe the difference in our training, I am a lawyer. A lawyer, you answer what is asked. In drafting, you have to be specific. There's this joke, doctor.
Kindly answer whatever.
Doctor, God met. Don't try me, you talked enough. God met a young man, and the young man asked God for three things. One, God, let me grow up and don't die. Two, when I grow up, let me drive a big bus. A big vehicle. Three, that big vehicle should be filled with beautiful girls. Three things, right? Growing up, big vehicle,
Beautiful girl.
beautiful girls. He's now a bus driver of Namagunga Girls School.
Is that? I thought that was NRM.
So will he complain? So when I'm asked, I have to answer exactly, because I'm asked a question whether NRM loves women. So you don't want me to answer what you want. I should answer what is there. If this boy asks God for 3 things, God will grant it as such. So in my training, I answer question as it is. After all, I even tied it, the Balaalo question to women land. But for you, you seem to have in your mind an answer I should give. I should give my answer. And how it is asked. Now, my final position is
Classic.
government takes this seriously, and the party takes this seriously. The question, rather than saying it works for Museveni, it works against NRM, because it creates disharmony among our voters, and our voters misunderstand it. That is why for a long time we have been paying attention, so that legitimacy, legality, and no disharmony is created among the population, because it affects our voting. So rather than saying it works for Museveni, it actually works against. And that is why a brigadier at one time was deployed to chase them. So the question of Balaalo for government is being handled so that it doesn't affect us also in terms of our persuading our voters, and also to create harmony among people.
Thank you so much, retired Major. And thank you so much, the panelists, for your thoughts about the Balaalo in northern Uganda. And I want us to hit on the fact that Bobi Wine is back, the AKA, the ghetto president, is in the area. And he was supposed to have his 1 million march. But the NRM people had planned for him. You know, we say we are a democratic country, we are multi-party and all that. But upon touching the plain touching ground, he was whisked away and put in his home. And my first question to you, retired Major, is this the kind of democracy you want to give young people? Why wouldn't you let Bobi Wine move with his supporters from the airport to his home? Are you afraid?
No, that question I think I'm not in a position to answer now, because it borders the operations of security. I think somebody will answer at an appropriate time.
Okay. But on democracy? Still with democracy?
No, democracy is that we have demonstrable systems. When you talk of democracy, you first have to examine the law, the broader law, the grand law. The grand norm, which is the constitution, is there and it is respected. Other further legislations are there by act of parliament to guarantee, say, democracy. Institutions like electoral commission are there to guarantee democracy. Courts of law are there to arbitrate on democracy. Regular elections is effected. So with democracy, we have no problem. We are very democratic and we see it going.
The NRM is very democratic, he has said. Mr. Joseph, did you see a problem with Bobi Wine not being able to move with his supporters from the airport to his home? Retired Major says it's a security issue. What are your views on that?
This is the worst dictatorship this country has ever had since independence. It's a shame that Mr. Museveni, who subjected this country to a vicious, extremely vicious war of massacre in Luweero, in the name of failed elections in 1980, and who, after 40 years, they failed to provide evidence. You know, since they came to power, they are not able to organize one single election without dispute. That they tie Ugandans' hands at the back for 20 years, and then bossed elections from 1986 to the end 2006. And the very same people, as we're discussing the question of land in northern Uganda, subject our people in northern Uganda for 16 years. And like my brother here is talking about, you know, people lived in concentration camps. The majority of those were women and children. There was one average in which 1,000 people were dying in the Acholi, in the camps in Acholi, 1,000 people dying per week. And of course, the rest of Uganda was quiet because they claimed, you know, sort of things were okay. That's under this NRM regime. They tortured and butchered people in Teso, including roasting 100 people in a rail wagon in Mukura in 1989.
Do the same?
Sorry?
Didn't UPC do the same?
Absolutely not. And I'm answering your question. This is the worst regime in this country, in the country's history. To the extent, therefore, after all this, we compel this ban, this lot, to return to multipartyism in 2004, 2005. To the extent that now we have a leader, an opposition leader, returning home and being bundled like we saw, the guys being grabbed like a cattle thief, and then we've got Mabati thieves,
on tarmac.
On
the tarmac at the
tarmac.
airport.
It's extraordinary what happened yesterday. It's extraordinary.
Yes,
I didn't expect to see it.
Actually,
it's
today morning.
extraordinary. It's extraordinary. I did not expect to see it. And that is the leader of the official position. And you dare ask me about Uganda People's Congress? No, not in the 60s, not in the 80s. Paul Semugeri, on record, my brother here likes talking about clips. Check Paul Semugeri's clip telling about what happened in 1980s. And in 1980s, Paul Semugeri was the leader of opposition in parliament. And when these guys were busy breaking people's necks in Luweero, at no time was there a member of parliament, sir, non-member of parliament, subjected to anything close to what is being subjected to Chagulanyi. And Chagulanyi is the official leader of the opposition. It's extremely unacceptable. And I'm speaking about it with massive emotion. I'm saying, after 40 years, can't NRA ever give the people of this country a chance? So no, it's not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. It's a dictatorship which came by force 40 years ago. It's not relenting, it's not letting to go. And unfortunately, it is not even showing a semblance of internal democracy, to the extent that Mr. Museveni and his brother and his son compete for who is the general who is able to capture a people's public state. It's shambolic.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Dr. Robert, what are your thoughts on the whisking away?
Yeah, I would have been shocked if something different had happened. I would be really shocked if something different had happened. Because in this country, the only thing at stake is President Museveni's power. That is the only thing at stake in this country. And if you risk with that one, you have to be used to being bundled in vehicles. That's why some of us, we have capacity to go into politics and do these things. But sometimes when you look at these inhuman things, you say, okay, let it be. Let me not involve myself in this Mazina Gembata. So in my view, what I saw is what I talked about earlier, that anything threatening President Museveni's power will be dealt with force and a huge budget. You can imagine how much money has been spent on, some of us go out there and we come back incognito. Nobody even knows that you have gone and come back. But let me go out there and I say a statement on BBC that when I go back to Kampala, I want to mobilize 10,000 people against the government. Not with a gun, not with any bomb or what. I just want to mobilize the people to be in my party. Maybe I formed the Uganda Teachers Party. I will reach Entebbe, and the next place will be, if I'm very lucky, Chibuli, to make a statement. If I'm not very lucky, disappear for some days and later get to be seen in a funny place, and people will say, what did Ojambo go into those things? So anything challenging President Museveni's power, and the Bobi Wine and the group should really, when they go out there, let them not go there to address people. Let them go to train to become harder, because they are going to be beaten, they are going to be stepped on. And when you see other, how come? You see, for me, I've been watching Ugandan politics. They're even opposition leader. They will ask you, how come they are not beating up so and so and so and so? Because they don't threaten. Yeah, I would see during the walk to work, everybody would be sprayed with that water which they were spraying. But if anything, if anybody can bring me when Mugisha Muntu was sprayed with that thing, I would see policemen literally even dodging him. And they said, that man is very good, he's very calm. The way he presents his things is calm. But these ones are, they're violent. So Bobi Wine has been seen to be a violent person. And because of the it's not because Bobi Wine boxes people and beats up people. His recent movement in Uganda showed no person beat up anybody because police was not involved. But because Bobi Wine is a big threat, because a man who made government get less than 20% in Uganda, fail in Busoga, and
lose at my polling station in Nagongera.
In Bukedi it was mixed. In some places he would win, some places he would lose. So it really shows that Bobi Wine is now the person. It's no longer Besigye. Besigye can make noise and he can go to Katonga. They even protect him to have his meetings in Katonga. These days I'm surprised because those days it would not be possible. So Bobi Wine and the people who support Bobi Wine should prepare themselves because I've been analyzing a few governments. ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe. I also, for a very long time, I analyzed the government in Sudan, which now collapsed. They behave in the same way. Mnangagwa, after winning an election, I think now they are going to see the real Mnangagwa. He has appointed his son, the minister. He's almost banning political parties. And the problem with Africa, that we have a high per capita income of all the leaders. All the leaders are not tolerant. They want to be respected. So if you come 42 years and you don't want to respect a man who is going to make 80 years, you're in trouble. Number two, the public. The public. By the way, threatening Bobi Wine is not because Bobi Wine is going to threaten peace, but is to scare his supporters. Because if the supporters see him being bundled in a vehicle and driven away like a leprosy person, who are they to come up and say anything? So they coil and keep quiet. That's why even the voter turnout is normally very low in Uganda. Because some people argue, why should I go there where I can be beaten? So the people who don't vote are more than the people who vote for the president. So it is I think it is a trick that is used, but it's not sustainable. Unfortunately, it's not sustainable. So I think Bobi Wine and the people who support Bobi Wine should prepare themselves. For worse things.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. I want to ask Dr. Sarah, does Bobi Wine have a shot at presidency in this country? In reference to what just happened.
First of all, you need to look at the Bobi Wine return. He's arrested, violent on the tarmac, bundled in police vehicles. He was brought to his home, but by the time they reached his home, was already under siege with about 30 police officers who were looking at the live stream of Bobi Wine's wife and the CCTV coverage of the home, surrounded by people in uniform. And when they knocked the gate, of course, the security at home did not first open for them. Then later, when a van with Bobi Wine and the leader of opposition arrived, the security guard was beaten, taken into one pickup and assaulted, and the uniform torn. So when you look at that kind of picture, and Bobi Wine in his statement after to media said about 300 of his supporters are in detention, and of course his home is still was still under the occupation of police at the time he addressed the media. So you ask yourself, first of all, Bobi Wine traveled out of the country and was returning, and his supporters thought they would welcome him. So does he enjoy free movement as a citizen? If you are now picking him at the tarmac, and if that is, I mean, really, why do you go to collect him at the tarmac? What happens to his passport? Because tomorrow they might charge him with illegal entry into the country. He has not checked through the immigration system. Two is, if you want to give him, because the state might, in a very sarcastic way say, that is how they welcome VIPs. But if you want to give him, I know this can be very sarcastic. So if you want to give him a VIP treatment, then why don't you bring his vehicles, his own vehicles and delegations to the tarmac and say, please receive your person and go? Why do you force him to go in a van? Because during that time he was under detention. That police van is a detention van.
That's correct.
Where people are picked and Some of them used to say they are tortured in that van. I don't know whether he was tortured yet. So that kind of environment, which takes away the right of free movement, the right to freely assemble and associate of the opposition groups in this country, of course, is a dictatorial approach. And we have been, unfortunately, Ugandans tolerated this nonsense for unnecessarily too long. And now it is difficult to deal with because we let the nonsense entrench itself. And now it's difficult to uproot. Under the guise of Tueva Katuro, under the guise of the man brought us peace, you leave him. The man destroyed the constitution, destroyed all pillars of the state, and now everything is just a nuisance. So you are saying, does Bobi Wine?
Have a shot at the president.
I mean, he garnered the biggest support after rigging. So, the Electoral Commission allocates percentage to voters, to presidential candidates after rigging. He still maintained support, and then he uprooted all Uganda ministers, Uganda ministers in the region. Buganda has the highest number of voters in Uganda. He also
he won only in 2 districts. I mean, he lost only in 2 districts.
in 2 districts. So actually, Bobi Wine just needs Uganda to win Uganda with about 70% in Uganda and East to win the presidency. If he got 70% in Uganda, 70% in the East, he can neutralize the other support from the West and North. Because North has the least number of voters.
Thank you so much. I know that the team has said we have 5 minutes, and we wanted to talk about
Independence.
the independence and what your thoughts are on the journey we've had on attaining independence. But what your future? What are you seeing for the future of Uganda, young Ugandan people?
But what is independence? I think for me the act of Bobi Wine return was like a ski. So if you want to look at whether Uganda is independent or not, the people who support NRM can enjoy a bit of rights. Rights to associate, rights to assemble, they can demonstrate. The other day when they were celebrating the president's birthday, they killed a Japanese road expert. I hope that Japanese can demand really for higher damages and reparations from Uganda. Because that is the level of organism that we have now started murdering experts on the roads under the guise of celebration. And then the police has done nothing. Yet we have CCTV
They
coverage.
arrested. They charged them in court.
We have CCTV coverage all over.
They were arrested and charged.
How many?
About 4.
So that is the level of thuggery under NRM. So when you look at that, you look at the lack of freedoms for the other people. So we have what the Baganda can call the children and then Ebyana in this country in terms of citizenship. If you are NRM, you have freedom. If you are not, then you don't have freedom. So what independence is there to celebrate? It is just a ritual. Until we get the real fundamental freedoms in this country, the real enjoyment of fundamental freedoms, equality before the law, we fight corruption, which in the end fights poverty, then we have no independence to talk about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. Dr. Robert, my question to you is, are we still a neo-colonial state?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, we got independence, which was taken away. It came through the door and left through the window. Because the people who replaced the African state, or who formed the first independent African state, have not been fundamentally different from the colonialists. Only that the other group were a group of white men exploiting black people, and now we are happy. And Africans are very interesting people, that when their own is doing something, they don't complain. He can steal, he can do the same thing. So it is not only in Uganda, even the earlier countries that got independence are still struggling. So we got independence. In fact, you have coped my mind. We got independence, but introduced neo-colonialism. For me, I tend to think that these African leaders, majority of them are colonial agents. in one way or the other. And that's why they are changed here and there. If the United States and Britain don't like Museveni, they will remove him very fast. You saw what happened in the Arab Stream. They just replaced everybody there. Remember, Bashir had just won an election with 86% people giving him votes. But no, not Bashir, Hussein Mubarak in Egypt. And the man later was removed. Of course, in Libya, there was no election and so on. That thing has not yet calmed down here. It has happened in Central African Republic. They are changing leaders every time through these coups. Do you imagine that a major can be that powerful to just go all of a sudden in the morning and he announces that he has changed the government all of a sudden? And which government? Government of Bongo. So we are under neocolonialism, it is very true. But let me restrict myself to Uganda. Uganda, I think, and we have discussed this severally here, until people feel the Uganda the country, so that people walk on foot the way they walk from Tororo, from Padibe, from Nyakasharu, I'm mentioning villages in Uganda, to go to Namugongo matters without any facilitation or what, and people start moving to Kololo. Just nobody is giving them transport. That's when we shall say we are independent. Right now, we are just surviving. And some young people really feel that colonials should come and take us up. But I tend to disagree with that feeling. But
it's very tempting.
That Nyerere one time said, it's better we mismanage ourselves than somebody else mismanaging us. But telling us that, oh, there is now independence, we are okay. No, we are in the same problem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. Mr. Joseph, would you believe that the national dialogue would be a gift to Ugandans on the day of independence? Would that be the perfect gift to Ugandans?
What is it?
The national dialogue.
Why are you dreaming? No, if there was a national dialogue announced, it would be a soft landing for Mr. Museveni. So it is in Mr. Museveni's interest to take very seriously the question of national dialogue, the question of national reconciliation, and it would be something that UPC built as a foundation. I issued a statement myself when I returned 2005 that the only way going forward for this country would be primarily that, and that would give us opportunity to carry out investigations since independence, and a conversation in terms of what happened and where things went wrong in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the messy part of NRAs today, so that we heal, reconcile, maybe call ourselves names, but hug and then build a foundation for which there's a possibility for young, beautiful people like yourselves, can retire in harmony and in peace, and possibly even retire in Agongere with the then excellent husband, whoever that one is, without prejudice, because I believe in the family, whatever, without necessarily bothering which part of Uganda it is, but of course freely, and nobody's going to harm me. Unfortunately, part of your question was, not to me though, but no, we are not independent. We were independent in the 60s. We tried, Obote tried from 1962 to give guarantee for the people of this country. But the new colonial states were absolutely as uncomfortable with him as they were with the Kwame Nkrumah. And so it's not surprising that they overthrew both of them. Independence will not occur when our programs of the 1962-63 of universal education in this country is realized. Our independence will be real and true when the women emancipation, the UPC way, starting in 1962, with a holistic program for women education, women emancipation, both in economic and political, social, and including in a manner in which representation of people is qualitative rather than symbolic coins of affirmative action that my brother here is talking about. And it will be the case that women have got access to to water, electricity, guaranteed medical care, and that, well, if a woman blessed with a child feels pregnant, knows there's a guarantee that they'll take the number 9 months and that they'll give birth safely, and that the children hit the age of 5+ and start primary school, and a program designed for them by UPC, whichever government at the time runs it safely. It will be that when a woman has got a guarantee that when there's a problem with their husbands or men, that they'll go to police station, law enforcement, and the law enforcement will protect them. It will be the case independence that such a person can walk the streets of Kampala, Nagongera, or even in Luero, Nagaseke, without fear that some rapist is going to come, and in the unlikely event that such a thing happens, that the law enforcement will be on their side. And it will be the case also, primarily, particularly, that a child of Nagongera, and I was in Nagongera the other day, a child in Nagongera walks barefoot like I did to St. Joseph's in Nagongera and becomes among the top 10 in the country. My lived experience. It goes to Miri, goes to Nyakas, entire school, goes to Nyakasura, goes to any other new public school. It could be Mvara, secondary primary school, or indeed in the Dabani High School in Busia, and that they have the same chance of getting to any public university. They have the same chance of graduating. And when they graduate, unlike they graduate, they've got a possibility that Mr. Museveni, who nobody knew in State House, but after graduating free from UPC's money in Dar es Salaam, is able to get access to a public service job in the economics department, the president's office, or in this case, the economics department, Ministry of Planning and Urban Development, whatever that ministry is, and that they're able to rise to the topest position. That will be the kind of independence. And that independence based on mobilized local resources rather than dubious monies from Pineti or dubious money from IMF and the World Bank. Unless and until that happens, we will not be free and independent. We attempted to have it UPC twice. It did not happen. Today, Uganda is the #1 Nyampala state.
About which one is that?
The Nyampala state, controlled by Mr. Museveni. Uganda is the Nyampala of neocolonialism under Mr. Museveni, and is the perfect region, like my brother said here. If America woke up the following morning and said they didn't want people to go, no, at the moment they still want it because they're serving their perfect state. What a waste we did for fighting for independence. But no, the future still belongs to you guys. It is still possible.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. And to retired Major, what new things are we going to see, apart from your usual parades, long speeches, medals? What new things are we going to see from this Independence Day celebration that will trickle down to all age groups and all different categories of people in Uganda?
Well, before I go to the new things, I also want to say that Uganda is independent. Now, independence not only in the case of Uganda, but in the sense of all developing countries, is intermingled with global economic system. Right now, we have we chase the colonial masters who are directly colonizing us. But remember, they're also humans. They also have brains, and they want resources. So they reorganize themselves through Bretton Woods systems, that is IMF, World Bank, and they still control. So we still have economic imbalance to the extent that the same Land Rover in 1962, which would cost 5 bags of coffee, that same Land Rover now may cost 30 bags of coffee. So their goods have continued to rise in value, ours has continued to go down. So that is a challenge in our global nature of independence. But somehow, we are lucky as Uganda with our independence, we have continued to be a country. Remember, since independence, countries have died. Somalia is in disarray. Sudan became 2 countries. Libya is almost no more. Yugoslavia broke into pieces until one time Serbia and Montenegro remained part of it, went to World Cup. When they reached quarterfinal, they were playing as Serbia and Montenegro. They had a term that again broke into big 2 countries. So now if you win the cup, where will you take it? So we don't take it for granted that since independence, Uganda has remained Uganda. And before life expectancy, if you walk into supermarkets, into shops, we have goods. We may have problems with ability of the purchasing power, but goods are there, all sorts of goods. Finally, we now live longer than a few years ago. From 45 years to 60, life expectancy has gone up. 2, happiness, which is done independently. We are the happiest people in East Africa. Compared to Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Ugandans had the happiest. So what else do we want from our independence? What else do we want from our independence? Other than living longer and living happier. That is the crystallization of all the interventions. Whether you talk of GDP, GNP, democracy, what all those words must crystallize into how long do I live, and do I live happy or not? That is it. So that is the current status. Now, about new things can be there because we already have the national development goals. We already have the planning authority has come up with projections. We have national budgets, and all systems are there in place. So even those new things that are coming are already in place, plan for it. We don't act arbitrarily. So new things are there, it will come in place. But for now, citing the figures or data, it must crystallize into what?
Happiness.
Living longer and happy.
Thank you so much for being part of the Citizen Chat Show. It's just wonderful to listen to this intergenerational dialogue and pick some new ideas. I've been your host, Turyatunga Rebecca Juna. Till next time, subscribe to us.